Hey guys, it's Sylvia with Backyard Brushes in Fountain City, Wisconsin, where I have a small shop where I sell repurposed items and I also hold workshops. But today I am super excited to share with you this project. It actually means kind of a lot to me. I have a hoard of spindles, and including in my hoard of spindles are the banisters, and they're banister rails for stairs, I believe. And I kind of depleted my hoard because I was so excited once I figured this out. I used a couple to figure out the project, and then I made a few. And now they're at the market, so we'll see this weekend if they sell, and I'll have to let you know. But I searched Google, Pinterest, the whole shebang, trying to figure out how I can make these trees using these spindles. But I couldn't find a pattern or anything online. So then I got the idea, and I used the modern tree pattern from Jen at Woodcraft Blueprints, and she has a modern tree pattern. So I modified her modern tree pattern for the spindles because they have the wood blocks on the sides, and adapted the pattern to the spindles to make my tree. So without further ado, let's get started. Oh, and by the way, I'm not going to teach you how to use a saw. Nobody wants me teaching them how to use a saw. So if you cut your own wood, great. If not, you might want to ask someone to help you or cut the wood for you. But they're just simple 22.6 and 45-degree angle cuts. So let's get started. First, I'm starting off with 2 banister rails. The first banister is 22 and 15/16 inches long with a 45-degree cut at the top. It has a 22.5-degree cut at the bottom. The second rail is cut at 20.5 inches long with a 45-degree angle cut at the top and a 22.5-degree angle cut at the bottom. Using Titebond glue and E6000 for that extra reinforcement, I glue the top of the tree at the angles together. I actually use the nail gun to help reinforce it, clamp it, and let it sit while the glue sets. I take the top of the tree and I set it on a 2x2, and I'm using my ruler to mark the base of the tree so that I know where to cut it, and I cut it using the miter saw at a 22.5-degree angle on each side. Using what I think are called banister caps, I'm going to cut off about 1 inch at the top so I have a wider base for the tree to set on. I got these caps and the 4-inch square on clearance at a local hardware store. So I've had a couple of those in my stash. I am going to glue the 4-inch square to a 2x6 that I cut into a square, drilled a hole in the middle so that everything can just get screwed together. I'm going to use the Titebond Quick and Thick again, reinforced with the E6000 to adhere my squares together. After the squares are glued in place, I grab the banister cap and I give it a squirt of the Titebond and the E6000. And now I just screw it nice and tight. I grab a baby wipe and go around all the edges just to clean up that excess glue that might have seeped out. Then I could just set it aside and let it set while the glue dries. And again, I'm going to grab the Type Bond glue and the E6000, and I am going to adhere the base of the tree onto the banister cap. What I don't catch on video is I actually screwed the base of the tree onto the banister cap to help strengthen that reinforcement. And then I took some wood putty and I covered the screw. So I am going to grab Sweet Pickens Milk Paint in a pickle that is left over from Sonnet's Maker's box. And I'm going to mix up a batch of paint. It's 1:1 paint to water ratio. I'm not a perfect measurer. I know we're all surprised. So I just kind of freehand it and guess it. You just want it to be a little bit thicker than a melted milkshake, or around that much. So you just add the water to the milk paint. And I am loving the Sweet Pickens milk paints. I had never used it before until I started receiving the different sample colors in Sonnet's and Maker's box. And I have found myself ordering more and more. And after making these trees, I'm definitely going to have to put in another order. And you can order the milk paint from Sonnet or also Sandra at Midwest Charm. And you don't have to use the milk paint. I just like it because I like that chippiness. Also, what I did not get on camera is I took brown acrylic paint and I stained the bottom of the tree so that I would have that brown tone under the full tree after it was painted. So now I'm just going to give the tree 2 good coatings of the milk paint. And of course, if you don't have milk paint on hand, you can use chalk paint, DIY, Fusion, Waverly, acrylics, whatever paint you want to use to paint up your tree. And because I was going for that chippy goodness that you can get from the milk paint, I painted the tree in sections and then went over it with the heat gun to get to try, it's never guaranteed, to get that crackling effect. So I just go over the tree in sections. Each section got 2 coats of paint with a hit of the heat between coatings. Once the tree is fully coated, I'm going to grab a sanding sponge and I'm just going to start working the tree, hopefully to obtain that nice distressed old look. And I just keep going around the whole tree, working it, using my wrist action. And at some point, I decide I'm not getting all that crackling goodness that I wanted. It's distressing a little bit, but just not as much as I wanted. So I actually switched from the sanding sponge and I grabbed one of the discs from my sander and I decided to stress with the disc instead. It was much easier to distress the spindles using that sanding disc. And hopefully you can see how much better it was distressing with that sanding disc. And I was getting that chippy, distressed look that I was going for. And then once I was done with the sanding, I grabbed a handful of baby wipes and I just wiped that whole tree down, cleaning up all the dust from sanding. And I am super stoked at how this turned out with all the chippiness and distressing. It just really gives off that vintage vibe that I wanted. And I am loving this green. Again, it's In a Pickle Milk Paint by Sweet Pickens. And if you do not have a dealer near you, you can order it online. I order mine through Sonnet's Garden Blooms, and I also order milk paint from Sandra at Midwest Charm. Next, I chose Espresso by Fusion. It's a furniture wax, and I'm going to cover the whole tree in this wax because it's going to help bring out that chippiness and the distressed look and darken it up while also help sealing the tree. I'm actually going to do it in sections. So I'm going to cover a section in the wax. I'm going to take a cloth and I'm going to remove the excess wax, leaving that darker brown in the crevices. And I always do the back and the bottoms of my projects. It just, especially if I'm going to sell them, but it just gives it that feel of a full completed project. And I'm just loving the way that wax, it just takes it to a whole new level. So the first tree, as you know, is In a Pickle by Sweet Pickens Milk Paint. And it has the dark brown espresso by Fusion for wax. The second tree, I know it looks kind of white, but it's actually Cupboard Door Milk Paint, Sweet Pickens, and it's a very light green, kind of like Apothecary by DIY. And then I used a gold wax. For the red tree, it is Red Wagon by Sweet Pickens, another milk paint color. And I used DIY black wax. And then for my black tree, I used the Lantern Sweet Pickens Milk Paint. I used brown espresso by Fusion, and then a touch of that golden buff just to, again, take it to another level. Okay, guys, what'd you think? I love the trees. I couldn't even tell you which one's my favorite. One minute I'm liking the light green, the next minute I'm liking the black. So yeah, it's really hard. It just depends on, I guess, my mood. I don't know. But it was fun to make. I'm super stoked to share it with you because, like I said, I could not find this anywhere online to steal the idea once I found inspiration and knew I wanted to make trees out of spindles. So please let me know in the comments below what you think, or if you have any other ideas of how I could modify it. And I know I can use spindle bases too, not just the banister caps, but please, any ideas, suggestions, comments, criticism, please, I'm open for it all. That's how I learn and grow. And if you felt inspired, please hit the subscribe and follow along on my creative journey. Thank you.